What's up, guys? I'm back. You're back. This is another poker vlog. I'm currently reporting from, where we at? The gym, because I kind of let poker become too big of a part of my life, and I started neglecting my fitness a little bit, which I'm not very happy about. I used to be like super into lifting weights and eating good and all that, and then I became a degenerate gambler, and then I started looking not the way I wanted. So trying to rebalance my life and play a little less, watch less poker, be less into this card game and more into other things that matter. But you guys don't care about that, or maybe you do. If you do, that's good. Go exercise, go touch some grass. If you don't care, then you're in luck, because I'm just gonna jump straight into the poker. We're gonna cover a session I played last week at Hustler Casino Live. It was your standard issue 2550 Wacky Wednesday, but as per usual, things got way out of hand and it ended up playing much, much bigger than a 2550 game. So let's go over the interesting hands and then I'll chat with you guys right after. All right, here we go once again. Today the game is 2550 100. The $200 straddle was often on, so a pretty big game. Let's get underway. And the first interesting one, straddle is on. Henry Limpson for $200, and then Brown Balla just shoves his stack in there, $7,600 and change. I looked down at Ace King, haven't acted yet. It's a pretty strong holding, even though he is all in for nearly $8,000. So I decided to go all in myself. We're all starting with no more than 30K. This game does have a cap the first 2 hours. And just like that, we have a flip to start off the session. About 50-50 chance that we're gonna win or lose this one. Unfortunately, this time we run it just once and find no improvement. He ends up actually rivering a straight. So we're gonna lose a 15K pot to start off the night. Just a casual $15,000 going the wrong way. Next, this one goes down where action folds all the way to me in the cutoff. I look down at 8-6 offsuit, and I think on the button it's fine to raise this one, maybe. Probably still a little bit too loose, but on the cutoff, not the best idea. Despite knowing this, I make it $400 and get called by Jeff on the actual button, as well as Henry and Brittany. So 4 of us go to a flop, which is usually not going to work out when you have 8-6 off, except the board comes pretty perfect for me. It's deuce, deuce, deuce. That shouldn't really change anything for any player involved, and I'm really the only one who could still have big overpairs given the pre-flop action. So when it checks to me, I think this is a great spot to continue bluffing. I throw in $1,000, around half pot. Jeff makes the call with king high on the button, but Henry and Brittany get out of the way. Going to a turn card, which is just as good as the flop was, it's the 3 of clubs. This should change absolutely nothing, and I'm just thinking to myself, I could still have all those overpairs, aka full houses. Jeff, at best, is probably going to have a hand like pocket sevens after not re-raising me pre-flop. And while I don't necessarily expect him to fold that hand, at least not yet, we can apply a lot of pressure on the river. So I put in another bet, this time $5,000, over betting the pot, trying to set up a maximum pressure all in. Worth noting, I would also do this if I had a hand like aces, kings, or queens, of course. Unfortunately, Jeff does make the call, so it looks like it's going to come down to a river, which is another 3, so there is a full house on the board. And the nice thing about that is if he was hero calling with ace high or king high, now we're chopping, so I feel like we're free rolling if he does have those hands. Obviously, if he does have a small pocket pair, I don't know if he's going to fold it or not, but I just think to myself, I would shove all in if I had an overpair, so got to do that with bluffs too to remain unpredictable. A pot's 13K, I shove all in for 22K effectively, and Jeff folds right away. So we get this one through. Not really necessary to go crazy with 8-6 offsuit, but after raising pre-flop, I think this was probably the best idea given how the board came out. So yeah, this one works out. And the next one, we have a bunch of limps, and I decide to do the same from the small blind with 9-7 suited. A couple other players get in there, and we have everyone and their mother going to a flop, which we flopped the nuts on. It's 10-8-6 with 1 spade, 2 clubs. Obviously, having the best hand right now doesn't mean a whole lot since there are so many players in this pot. It's very possible that someone makes a flush or a better straight by the end of it. So, gotta tread lightly here, but definitely gonna try to pile the money in. I start with just betting out of the small blind. I feel like that's not gonna look super strong, and it looks like it gets the job done immediately as Jeff raises on my left to 1,600 with just top pair. Mike cold calls this $1,600 raise, and then when it gets back to me, I'm not going to mess around too much. We have the very rare 3-bet on the flop coming in. I make it $6,600 to go. Just trying to get value from worse hands. It's really not that complicated. Jeff eventually folds his top pair, but Mike does not seem convinced just yet. He's got top pair and a straight draw. He decides to come along. Turn card kind of sucks. It's the 5 of clubs. Obviously, my immediate thought is he could play a lot of flush draws this way on the flop. Let's say he's got the nut flush draw or a pair and a flush draw. Those are both possible, but I also think he probably would have raised suited aces pre-flop, so I'm not super worried about that. And I also think that he might have just jammed or raised again with a hand like that on the flop if he did have some sort of combo draw. So instead of checking, I decide to bet small around a third. Not loving the card, but definitely still want to put in some money. And this time Mike does fold as he's beating pretty much nothing now. So even though that turn card looked kind of bad, the only way it actually was bad is because it stopped us from getting a little more value from Mike. But it's still nice to win this one. In the next one, I straddle for $500, and you're probably wondering, why would you do that? Well, we're playing the bounty game. In fact, today it's the super bounty, which is what I call 4 hands in a row instead of 3. All it means is if you're able to win 3 or 4 consecutive hands in a row, you collect a bounty from every other player. On this night, we were playing, I believe, $1,000 if you're able to win 3 in a row. That's $1,000 per player. And then $2,000 if you can win 4 in a row. So I am on my third right here. I straddle for 500, trying to get last position and disincentivize people from continuing. We get a bunch of limpers, and I decide to make it 4,000 without even looking at my cards. And I'm just thinking, hey, if everybody folds and this looks strong, why not? We win like $7,000 from the table collectively. So I make it 4K. Mike thinks for a while and folds. Brittany also folds. Then it gets to Audie, the last line of defense for the rest of my table mates. And he decides to stick up for everybody. He makes the call, so we're going heads up in position to a flop of ace, queen, queen. Mind you, I still have not looked at my cards at this point, but I'm just thinking to myself, this guy limp called pre-flop, and this board is going to be better for me, generally speaking. So he checks, I bet small, 2,600, and now Audie raises to $8,000. Not really sure what to make of this. I think more likely than not, it's probably a bluff, since if he had a queen or an ace, he would likely just call. But of course, I don't know what I have, so it's time to look at my cards, and I'm very pleasantly surprised to see that I actually have top pair. So we have an easy call in position. Turn card is the 8 of clubs, and the pot's 25K. Audie thinks for a little bit and shoves all in for 18K. And look, man, if you have me beat, so be it. But there are a bunch of bluffs available, especially given the situation. So I make the call. Audie does not look pleased. We decide to run it twice, and he cannot improve on either board with his straight draw. So not only do we win this pot, $62,000 and some change, but we also collect that 1K bounty per player. Moving on to the very next shuffle, where if I can win this hand, I get 2K per player. For that reason, I straddle to $1,000. I'm thinking to myself, same thing as before. If we can get some folds pre-flop, that's cool. And then it gets all the way to brown balla. He shoves all in, and I look down at ace king suited. That's almost unfair on the 4th bounty to get a hand this beautiful, but obviously I make the call and we go heads up all in to a single board. I choose to just run it once, and it looks pretty good. We flop 2 spades. Turn card's an 8, so it's a little bit of a sweat as now he has a straight draw, but the river brings him no help, and ace king high wins this pot, plus the 2K from every single player, totaling us $3,000 per seat in this round. A very profitable round, and just like that, we are up nearly $85,000 after playing for just around 1 hour. So at this point, I'm ready to chill out since Once you win X amount of hands in a row, the game sort of restarts. But now the table tells me that before I arrived, and I was late today, sorry about that, but before I arrived, they decided we would play up to 5 hands in a row. I've never played that game before. I thought it was over after 4 hands, so now I learned that if I can win one more hand, I get $3,000 from everybody. So it looks like a good offer to me, and I just keep the system rolling. I straddle to $1,500 this time. Henry limps in from late position. Brittany also limps in, and now Coach Collins raises to $8,000. I look down at ace-3 offsuit, and it's already a very weird situation because, yeah, calling ace-3 offsuit for 8K is not very fun, but bear in mind, we're getting a very good price since we can collect $21,000 if we're able to win this hand. So, you know, should we call 6,500 with the chance to win 21,000? I think so, especially in position. I think it's obvious Coach Collins probably has me in bad shape, but having an ace and potential straight draws, you know, with the 3, I don't think it's too bad. So I decide to make the call. Henry also makes the call, and now Brittany back jams all in with 9-7 suited. Luckily, it was not enough to reopen the action, and I think just barely, by like 100 or 200 bucks. That would have sucked because then Coach Collins could have shoved all in, and then I kiss 8K goodbye. But instead, Coach Collins can only call, so he makes the call. And then I kind of have no choice but to call again. It's 6K into a pot that's 44,000, so that's how you end up putting in $14,000 pre-flop with ace-3 off. Henry also makes a call, and the 4 of us go to a board of ace, queen, deuce. I'm feeling pretty good, I'm not going to lie. Sure, we could be up against a better ace, but I think Coach Collins is often going to have pocket pairs that hate the ace. And of course, given that the pot is now $56,000, this hand is pretty much over since, take a look at Coach Collins and Henry's stacks. They have 26K. That's less than half pot, so there's no way I'm folding top pair at this point. Coach Collins shoves all in for 26K, which honestly I don't really love, but this hand somewhat plays itself. I make the call. Henry's out of there, and unfortunately, he's got the goods with ace-king. So we're in terrible shape and can't improve on future streets. Well, actually, we do improve, but so does he. You know, we both have 3 of a kind. He's got a better kicker. He's going to win this one, and we end up giving back like $40,000 in this hand, trying to win that bounty. Unfortunate the way that all played out, but I think for the most part, it made sense. Just a little bit of bad luck. Nice hand, Coach Collins. On the bright side, though, it only took about another hour for me to be up to bat again for this 3rd bounty. In this hand, I look down at ace-7 of diamonds. I end up raising it up, get called by Coach Collins, and we flop top pairs. So that's looking pretty good, and sure enough, it gets the job done. We end up collecting this 1K bounty from everyone, and that means, again, the very next shuffle, we have the chance to win 2K bounty from every player. This game certainly changes a lot about, you know, the way you play hands, and for the most part, I advocate for anything that, you know, takes the game out of the box. So I'm for sure a big fan of this. Tons of action. But anyway, I straddle for $1,000 yet again. Hoping everyone folds. Getting a walk in this situation would be awesome. It gets all the way to Audie, though, and he does the opposite of folding. He jams all in. That said, he has less than $10,000. And when it gets to me, it's 9K for me to call. And of course, I can win $14,000 from the rest of the table if I'm able to win this hand. So I feel like it makes sense to make the call without even looking at my cards, and that's what I do. I don't know what I have at this point. I decide to just gamble with Audie and hopefully get lucky. The flop comes king 5 deuce, the turn is a deuce, the river's a 4. I haven't looked at my hand. We're running it twice. Usually in those cases, the top board is the one that will count for whatever side game is going on. Bottom board comes jack high, and he turns over king jack, so that looks pretty good on these boards until I flip over 10 deuce off. Much to my surprise, and a very pleasant surprise at that. We suck out on the top board, and that's good enough to scoop the 2K bounty from every single player. We're up a good amount now and made back a ton of what I gave to Coach Collins about an hour ago. Once more, we have a bounty up for grabs the very next shuffle, but sadly in this one, Henry jams for $25,000 and I have 8 deuce offsuit. I think this hand is just a little bit too bad. Maybe I should have called, who knows? Maybe I shouldn't have, but we decided to rabbit hunt and I would have flopped a boat and rivered quads. and also collected $3,000 from each player. So I guess we just shouldn't talk about this anymore. Let's go to the next hand. A few rounds later, Audie is in position to win this 1K bounty. He's won 2 hands in a row. A couple of limpers before him, and he shoves all in for 8,200. Unfortunately for him, I look down at pocket jacks in the big blind, decide to raise it up and just try to get all in against Audie. I make it 20K. Everyone folds, and he's got queen jack offsuit. Once again, we're running it twice, and this time pocket jacks hold up on both boards. Sorry, Audie, no bounty for you this time, and we collect this 17K pot. In the next hand, we see a raise from Coach Collins to 300. I look down at ace king in the small blind, pretty standard re-raise, so I make it $1,800. And now Jeff on my left comes in with the cold 4-bet. Can be pretty scary at times, but I've got ace king, and Jeff is fairly wide pre-flop. As you guys can tell, the man has put in nearly $6,000 US with 10-8. Coach Collins gets out of the way. I am not going to do that. In fact, I'm going to go for another raise. Could advocate for just a call here as well, considering that we're pretty deep and out of position, but I decide to go in for the raise this time. I make it $15,000 to go, and Jeff makes the call with 10-8 suited. You got to tip your hat to the man. He has no fear. We go to a flop of 7-3 deuce, all diamonds. I've got ace king without a diamond. It's not the best flop, all things considered, but given all the raises that went in pre-flop, I think a small bet is in order with essentially all my hands. So that's what I do. I throw in 8K around a quarter pot. Jeff makes the call, and now we go to a turn card, which is the 9 of spades. Going to be checking some hands here. Ace king off is going to fall into that bucket sometimes, so I check it. Jeff checks it back, and we see the 10 of hearts on the river. I still don't really think bluffing makes a ton of sense, so I decide to check once more, kind of giving up, and now Jeff assembles some sort of bet in the amount of all in. He's flopped a flush, so he's going for the max, and I don't blame him. The times that I do have aces or kings or stuff like that, I'm definitely calling. Hell, I might even call with ace king if I had a diamond, but this time I make the fold relatively quickly, and we end up losing a decent chunk here. Sadly, not the best board for us. In the next hand, Henry is up to bat for the bounty. He straddles for $600, and then Brown Balla decides to foil his plans by restraddling to 1200 in late position, so that way Henry does not act last pre-flop. This means action starts on me since I'm on Brown Balla's left, and I look down at pocket queens on the button. Great time to have a hand and a great position as well. I open up the action for $3,200. Henry thinks for a bit and lets go of his 5-3 offsuit. It's never fun to fold when you have a bounty up for grabs, but his hand just sucks, so I get it. Brown Balla defends, and we go heads up to play this pretty bloated pot already. There's 7K in the middle, and he's got 37 back. Anyway, we flop top set, so that's pretty sweet. Queen, jack, deuce, 2 hearts, plenty of draws available, but since we have so much removal to value hands, I'm going to bet small. $2,300, and we get the good news as Brown Balla puts in a check raise up to 8,000. Things are looking pretty good. Could put in a small raise here, but that would be super weird. I think the standard play is to call and let him continue bluffing on the turn, or perhaps value betting a worse hand like 2 pair or sets, whatever. So I make the call, looking for a clean turn, and that's exactly what we get. It's the 4 of clubs, an absolute blank. If he was bluffing with king 10 or some sort of flush draw, we are still safe. So that's good news, and better news is that he doesn't slow down. This time he bets $12,000. Now at this point he's got $17,000 behind, and the pot's like 35. It's going to be more if I put in chips, so it's almost a min raise. I decide to just shove all in and try to get him to commit his remaining chips with whatever draw he might have, or, you know, worse hand, since I've got the best possible one. And now he goes into the tank. As you guys can tell, it's a tough spot now with a flush draw, but it's 17K for him to call into a pot that's 65,000. It's pretty close. I think probably he should just call, but even if he folds, I'm okay with that since he's getting such a great price. And in the end, he does end up folding, which is kind of crazy considering he put in like half his stack already. I guess we could have maybe gotten some more value, but perhaps he would have checked the river anyway, so who knows. Either way, we win $24,000, and of course, avoid paying Henry his 1K penalty. Before we move to the next hand, I wanted to remind everyone out there, since I forgot to talk about it in the intro, I will be hosting another online meetup game on Clubs Poker. That's going to be on August 12th, 5 p.m. Pacific. Scan the QR if you guys want to play. It's real money. It's going to be 1-2, no limit. And I'm going to be splashing around, so come hang out. I'm also going to live stream it on my YouTube channel, so you'll have a chance to maybe give me some money or take some of mine. The choice is yours. This is the time and place to do it. Anyway, back to Hustler. In this next hand, Henry straddles for $300. There's a couple of limps, and I decide to limp in as well from the big blind with King Queen offsuit. Could go for a raise as well, but I don't want to become so predictable that every time I limp it's bad hands and every time I raise it's good hands. So sometimes I'll throw in a call with something strong like King Queen. Jeff also limps, and then Henry checks his straddle. So 5 of us go into a flop of Queen 10-5 with 2 hearts. I start with a check, could bet here sometimes, but I decide to check. Jeff also checks, and now Henry puts in a bet of 800. Mike makes the call, Audie is out of there, and it's back to me. And look, I know Henry could have 2 pair, he could have maybe even a hand like pocket 5s once in a while, but more often than not, I suspect he's going to have top pair or some sort of draw, and we are ahead of all those hands. Ace Queen, I would imagine, would have raised pre-flop. So I decide to go for a check raise here and try to get value from all those holdings I think he's going to continue with. I make it $4,000. Henry makes the call, Mike gets out of the way. Going to a turn which looks pretty decent, I guess. It's the 8 of clubs. It does bring in Jack 9, which is possibly the most obvious straight draw out there on the flop, but at the same time, there's still a bunch of top pair he could have. There are plenty of flush draws available. I decide to check though. I think a bet here is also okay, but this time I decide to check it and see what Henry wants to do, and after some thought, he checks it back. River card is the 10 of spades, and now I think we have the green light to go for some value. If he was going to bluff, he probably would have started doing that on the turn, so I suspect he's got a hand like queen or a 5. He might even have 8x of hearts, something like that. So I bet a third pot, targeting all those sorts of holdings that might call, and sure enough, he does make the call with queen 4, so we end up winning this pot. Nice to avoid any hearts, as Henry definitely had a big flop. In the next one, I raise it up to 500 with ace queen of spades. I don't know if this counts as a premium, but if it's not, it's pretty damn close. I make it 500. Jeff re-raises on my left to 2200. And look, we're late position versus late position. I'm definitely not folding, obviously. It's just a question of re-raising or calling. And I think a mix here is probably the best way to go. This time I take the aggressive route and raise it up. Again, Jeff plays very wide. He's not afraid of making calls. And ace-queen suited is purely a value raise almost always in this spot. So I make it 8K to go. Jeff makes the call and we go to a flop of queen 5 deuce 1 spade. That's about as good as it comes when you make it $8,000 pre-flop with ace queen. Top, we're almost always going to have the best hand. It's a 4-bet pot, so I decide to continue for around 50% of the pot size. I put in 8,000 bucks. Jeff makes the call and we see another 2 on the turn. Things are still looking very nice. Ace deuce suited is probably the only hand that might be of concern, but I take a look at the suits of each deuce and there's only one possibility of ace deuce suited at this point, obviously referring to the club variety. All I'm trying to say is I'm still not worried and I'm going to keep trying to get some value. Fingers crossed he's got king queen or something like that. This time I bet around the size of the pot, 30,000. Unfortunately, Jeff makes the fold pretty quickly. His pocket eights can't hang on for too much longer, and he makes a good fold this time as I actually had it. About an hour later, I raise it up with a suited queen once more, except this time I've got an 8 instead of an ace to go along with it. Make it $500. Mike makes the call on the button. Everyone else folds, and the run good continues today. It comes 9-8-8. That's right, 3 of a kind and a pretty nice kicker as well. I'm not going to get fancy. I decide to just bet $500. Mike makes the call and we see the ace of spades on the turn, giving me the backdoor flush draw in case of emergency. Not that I necessarily thought we needed it. This card might be good, it might be bad. It's tough to say. If he called the flop with ace high, it's obviously great. If he has a hand like pocket 7s or maybe even pocket 10s, any sort of 9, then he's going to hate this card. Either way, we're out of position, so I don't want to check and have him check back. I decide to continue betting. This time I size up to $4,000, trying to just make it look like I'm bluffing. And of course, if he's got an ace, I think we have the green light to go for a bunch of value now. Mike, however, after this $4,000 bet, decides it's not quite enough, despite the fact that I overbet the pot. Perhaps my big sizing made him feel like I was bluffing. I don't know exactly what he was thinking, but what I do know is he made it $12,000 to go. And look, this is the point in the hand where I think to myself, if you've got it, you've got it. I'm not going to fold 3 of a kind with a flush draw. The question is, how do we want to proceed? And I think the best way, even though it seems kind of weird, is to actually 3-bet this turn and just go all in. He's got 17K back and the pot's going to be pretty big. I don't think he's going to be able to fold whatever he's raising this turn with. And I don't want to just call and have him check back a hand like ace jack or something on the river. So I shove all in, and now Mike seems to regret his raise on the turn, but he doesn't snap fold, and that looks like decent news. After a while, I want him to call, of course, since it becomes apparent I've got the best hand. And we do get the good news as eventually Mike does call with just a pair of 9s, which is a pretty light play on his behalf, but I guess he just thought I was full of it. I can't really blame him because often he would be right. Unfortunately for him this time, I've got it, and we end up running it twice. Neither time brings him any help, and we collect a $61,000 pot. Anyway, that was the last fun hand of this stream. I did end up playing post-stream, and there was a really weird spot during that time. So stay tuned. I'm going to go over one more hand, and of course, cover some final thoughts. Alright, so I promised you guys one more hand. I'm back home, by the way, getting some much needed video game time. But I promised you guys one more hand. I ended up playing like 2 hours after the game ended, or rather the stream ended. It was 3 or 4-handed, I believe. This next hand comes up between me and Coach Collins, where he opens from late position. I re-raise out of the small blind with king queen offsuit. He makes the call, and we go to a flop of king 9-6 with 2 clubs. I do have the queen of clubs, I believe, but I decide to check it. I think always betting boards like these is kind of a mistake, especially out of position. So I check, and he checks it back. Turn card's not my favorite. It's an ace, but I also don't think he's going to connect with an ace super often. I decide to check it again, and this time Coach bets. I make the call, which I think is standard, and then the river brings in the flush. I think it was like the 4 of clubs or something like that. I check again, and now he bets like 2/3 of the pot size. Kind of an uncomfortable spot because we could easily just be getting wrecked by like ace 10 or whatever. But I think given how I played my hand, he's going to be tempted to try bluffing with a lot of holdings. And I also have the queen of clubs. I kind of thought about check raising as a bluff, but then I realized my hand is a little too strong, I think. So I decided to make the call, and it was good. Now, after the stream, we were playing 100, 200 with occasional $400 straddles on. So this pot ended up being somewhere around $25,000 or $30,000. But it was really the only interesting spot I had for the rest of the night. I was kind of card dead, even though we were like 3 or 4-handed. But I am happy to report that despite that, we had a nice win, a very nice one for a Wednesday. I won nearly $150,000 in about 7 hours of play. And I'm very, very happy that things ended up not being a complete disaster in July, because the start of the month was shaky, to say the least. But yeah, that's how my night went. As always, I hope you all enjoyed the hands, and I think that's all I got for today. Don't forget about the clubs meetup game. I hope to see you guys on there. And next time I talk to you guys, it's going to be covering the All-Star game, which is on Wednesday, August 6th. If you don't know what that is, it's pretty much like the fan favorites from Hustler. And I've been lucky enough to be invited. So that's the next time I'm playing, and that's the next vlog you're going to see. Should be a fun lineup. And let's see what happens. As always, thank you for the support. Good luck at your local tables, and I'll see you all next time. Peace.